Welcome, adventurers. What's going on, guys? My name is Cody. This is Taking 20, a channel about all things role-playing games. And today we're back with another Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition character build. Specifically today we are looking at the new Unearthed Arcana from Wizards of the Coast, the Brute archetype, which is for the fighter class. And so today we are going to be building out the Holy Brute, or actually even potentially the Unholy Brute, which is going to be a fun little multi-class. I was kind of inspired for this class from a few different things. A couple of friends and my younger brother was trying to get me back into D3, and so we took some inspiration from that. We took some inspiration from the new Fighter Brute class, and this is what we came up with. So I hope you guys are ready. Let's get started. Okay guys, so let's jump in here and start making our Holy Brute or Unholy Brute. Real quick, I do want to let you know that yes, I'm going to be using D&D Beyond to build out this character. This is not a sponsored video from D&D Beyond or anything like that. I know that a lot of times people, people think certain things are going on in the background, but I always try to make it very, very clear whenever I do in fact have a sponsor. I just like using D&D Beyond as a tool whenever I'm doing theory crafting. So while we're making this character, I do want to let you guys know that I'm going to be creating a few different versions of this character and making them available as downloadable PDFs for you at level 5, level 10, level 15, and level 20. So if you have any games you want to check out this character and use them in your upcoming game, you can absolutely do so. Okay, so let's jump over here and select our race. Now, right out of the gate, I want to let you know that in this particular build, we're going to be going with the human variant. But I don't want you to think that you are beholden to that particular race for this build. There's a lot of really, really, really great choices for this build. If you want to go with something like a half-orc, that fits fantastic with this build. If you want to do something like a dragonborn, that makes a lot of sense. If you want to do a dwarf with that +2 to strength and +2 to constitution, you can do something like that. Even if you wanted to go the route of a bugbear and kind of make this an unholy brute dealing out necrotic damage in the middle of the battlefield, that is a great choice. Or if you're a dungeon master and you're looking to make a sort of really nice, beefy, dangerous character for your players to fight against, that could work very well as well. So let's jump over here and grab our human variant. Let's come down here and give them a language. I like orc, just kind of for the flavoring here. And then for our ability scores, what we want to do is we want to take 1 point into strength and 1 point into constitution. Now for our skills, let's go ahead and snag one that you like. I like perception. I think that kind of makes a lot of sense there. And for our feat, we are going to take, you guessed it, Pole Arm Master. And this is a really, really great ability that allows us to make an extra attack as a bonus action with this particular weapon. So we are getting our main attack, and then we can do a bonus attack at that D4. But with the way that this class is built, it's still going to be able to take advantage of all the extra things like Brute and the things from the Barbarian that we're going to be doing here later. And so this, it just is a great choice for this, and that's kind of why I like the human variant. Also, by the way, if you guys saw the previous version of this video I uploaded for a few minutes there with that awful audio bug, you noticed a little bit of a different choice there, a little bit of a brain fart, but a couple of tweaks here and there, no problem. We missed something small, changed this over from 2-weapon fighting back over to the glaive, and no harm, no foul. So let's slide over here for our ability scores. And for our point buy, what we want to do is we want to absolutely crank up our strength and our constitution scores. We're going to max those bad boys out. So we want 15 points into strength and 15 points into constitution. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to crank our charisma score up to a 13, which might surprise some of you, but you'll see why here towards the end of the build. And then let's get our dexterity score up to 10 and our wisdom score at least off of those negative modifiers. So as we come down here and look at the overall character that we're starting the game off with, we have a very, very strong character that is very, very hefty and has a really, really high constitution score and a solid health pool. It's kind of a charismatic guy, which I think is kind of cool as we kind of blend into this overall theme. Is not necessarily the brightest or the wisest, and maybe not the nimblest guy out on the field, but you know, if it's one of those kind of Goliath guys that if he puts his hands on you, you're going to be in trouble. So let's slide over here to class. Now, ultimately, this build, this Holy Brute build is going to be a fighter barbarian paladin build. Okay, that's going to be the overall build. But as is often the case with these multi-class builds, it's less about how many of each of these levels we're going to take and more about when to take those levels so that we're not falling behind in our power curve just because we're trying to snag a couple of tidbits here and there from these other classes. So I did a lot of math. I worked this over several times about, should we start off fighter? Should we start off paladin? You know, what's the best way to go about it that we're getting our extra attack as early as possible? We're not falling behind with our ASI. And ultimately, what I thought the best route to go is to just start off the game with one level of Barbarian, which is going to give us access to rage and all that extra rage damage right out of the gate. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's come down here. I like Intimidation just kind of for the flavoring here. And, you know, to continue on with the theming of this character, I like Survival. You know, he speaks Orc. He's, you know, he's proficient in Survival. Maybe this is a wildman out there who is kind of tapping into an unknown god or something like that as he progresses. And, of course, that gives us Rage, gives us that extra bonus to damage. And it also gives us access to Unarmored Defense. Now, this build is not about armor. You are going to take damage. And that's one of the reasons why we have such a high constitution score. You're just going to take a lot of damage. Now, as you can see here with our unarmored defense, we have no dexterity mod, and we are getting to add our constitution mod, but again, it's not significant. You're going to come out of the gate with a 13 AC. It's just not a lot there. And then as you move later on in the game, you're going to be basically recklessly attacking. So you're almost going to be taking every attack that comes in at you, which is why you're going to want to have a really good support team and a really good party that can support you by, you know, mezzing and crowd controlling while you're coming up and dealing out as much damage as possible and trying to keep you up and keep you healthy while you are doing that. So take that into consideration when you are planning out this character or talking with your other party members about maybe what kind of characters you might want to play for your upcoming game. Now, after we take one level in Barbarian, we're going to stop right there for the moment, and we're going to immediately switch over to our fighter. Okay, and now that we have our fighter, what we want to do is we want to take the next 6 levels in fighter. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now, and we're going to come down here to our class features. So right out of the gate with our first level of fighter, we're going to get access to our fighting style. We want to take great weapon fighting. This is going to allow us to re-roll some of those low 1s and 2s with our glaive and to try to get higher damage and kind of a more consistent amount of damage across the board. And then, of course, we're going to get second wind, going to help us heal a little bit here with our fighter levels. Action surge, which is really nice. We're going to be able to do that basically once a day. You're going to be able to burst for a little bit of extra damage. And then at our third level of fighter, 4th level overall, that is when we're going to gain access to our Brute archetype. And when we do that, that is going to give us access to this really incredible ability, Brute Force. So what Brute Force does is whenever you land a hit against an opponent, whenever you're making an attack and actually landing it, it's going to deal an extra 1d4 points of damage. Just throw on an extra d4 of damage because you're so brutal with your attacks. Now, one thing to note with this is this procs every single time you hit. Every single time you hit, this is going to proc. So this is not a once per round type of ability like you're going to see later on with our Barbarian. This is on every single attack that hits. Every single one gets that extra damage dice. And that's why we want to kind of abuse this and make this a driving mechanic for the class. It's also one of the reasons why we took Polar Master at the beginning, so we can get that regular attack, follow that up with that extra d4, because that in fact would proc this extra brute force damage as well. Now down here at level 5, which is our 4th level of fighter, we're going to get our first ASI. This is really simple here, guys. We're going to just crank up our strength. It's going to help us hit. It's going to help us deal damage. It's just good for the build overall. And then down here, we're going to finally gain access to extra attack 1 level behind the regular curve of barbarians and fighters and monks, etc. Right about the same time that Blade Singers and Valor Bards get their extra attack here at level 6 overall. And then as we slide down, and real quick, let me talk about extra attack here. So this is going to allow us at this point to make a 1d10 attack plus our strength mod, plus the rage damage, plus the 1d4, and then turn around and do the exact same thing again, and then follow that up with an extra 1d4 plus our rage damage, plus our strength, plus the brute damage as well. So we're making 3 attacks now with all of those mods and all of those extra dice being thrown on there. And again, that's one of the things that we really like about the way that brute works here, is because this is not a static damage, like saying, hey, oh, you get an extra 2 damage on all your attacks. Because it's actually a roll of the dice, whenever you crit, you're going to be able to double that dice as well. And we're really going to abuse some of that stuff later on. And then finally, we're going to take our, at least for the time being, our 6th level, our last level in fighter for the moment. And that is going to give us access to that ASI right around again. We're going to get that just a couple laters after we got the first one. And at level 7 overall, we are going to max out our strength at 20 to just be a dominant brute out on the battlefield. And so now we can kind of just close all this up, close up the fighter for the time being. And now what I want you to do is we're level 7 overall. Now we're going to go in and we're going to finish out our Barbarian completely. So in totality, this build is only going to have 4 levels of Barbarian, and we're going to go ahead and take the last 3 levels right now, all the way up to level 10. So what this does is this unlocks it does a couple things here. So first off, it does reckless attack, and this is going to allow us to attack at advantage on every single attack. This is very, very important, and a very important driving mechanic to the engine for this particular build. And then down here at level 9, we're going to gain access to our primal path. And this is when our theming can really start to kind of tie in here. So you have this just brute out on the field that is just dealing massive amounts of damage. And now you are going to suddenly start dealing extra radiant or perhaps necrotic damage. So this is going to give us an extra, this Divine Fury is going to give us an extra 1d6 plus 1 at level 9. Once you get to level 10, it's going to be a 1d6 plus 2 for the rest of the build. So in essence, it's going to give you that 1d6 plus 2 every single turn in extra radiant or necrotic damage, depending on kind of the path and theme that you want to take your particular character. And the way that this works is just the very first attack that you make in the round that actually lands, you can just proc this damage. And because, again, this is a dice roll and not a static, whenever we're doing our reckless attacks, looking for those natural 20s as we're making all of our attacks, this would actually proc as well. So you have another dice roll that you can actually double up. And then Warrior of the Gods, it's kind of interesting, kind of cool flavor there. And then finally, we're going to get another ASI down here at level 10. But with our strength already maxed out, this time we're going to come back and we're going to choose a feat. We're going to take Great Weapon Master. And this is going to do a couple of really, really interesting and cool things for us. So right now we're getting 2 attacks in a turn plus our bonus attack at a 1d4. And what this is going to allow us to do is take that 1d10, 1d10, and if you kill your foe, if your target dies, instead of taking that bonus attack at a 1d4, now you can move, if you have any movement speed, up to the next target and do another 1d10 attack against them as well, instead of that 1d4. And again, you're continuing to proc all of those extra things with your brute force damage. And the second thing it's going to do is going to really explode this particular build with its damage capabilities. And that's going to let you take a -5 penalty on your attack rolls in exchange for an extra 10 static damage to every single attack. So keep in mind, at level 10, hypothetically, you could be dealing 5 attacks, right? Because you have your attack, your extra attack, and then your bonus, whether that be a target that you killed or just your regular bonus, you still get to add it to that. And then you can follow that up with an action surge for another attack and extra attack as well. So in theory, you could, at level 10, you could be throwing an extra 50 static damage, just an extra 50 static damage. Now, again, your attack modifier is really going down at that point, but what you're doing is you're looking for crits, and you're looking with all of those reckless attacks So you're not throwing 1 dice, 2 dice, 3 dice for those attacks. You're throwing 2 dice on each attack. So even without action surge, you're throwing 6 d20s at this point, looking for crits, looking for attacks that even with a low attack bonus are going to be able to get there on your opponents. And we're going to be able to abuse this even more here in just a little bit, as now we're at a point for level 11. Now we're going to start dipping into our Paladin, continuing on with that theme. And this is the reason that you saw us grab that 13 early for Charisma, is that so we could have the score high enough here to multiclass into Paladin. And so for our Paladin, what you're going to do is for the next 5 levels, you're going to take Paladin. So let's go ahead and come down here. Our fighting style, it's really unimportant. Let's just take, let's take dueling, no problem. And then for spell casting, we'll get back to that here in just a little bit. And this is where things are going to start getting really, really insane. So this is your 2nd level on Paladin and your 12th level for your character overall. At this point, you gain access to Divine Smite. And I know you guys might be thinking, why do you have a class that casts spells with a character that rages that you can't cast spells while you're raging? And you're absolutely correct. You cannot cast spells while you're raging. That's why spell casting is not important to us. However, Divine Smite uses spell slots, but is not casting a spell. So you absolutely can Divine Smite while you are raging. It is not considered casting a spell. So this is where Reckless Attack and all of those attacks with that bonus attack are going to start to play into effect. So the way that Divine Smite works is really, really interesting here, guys. So it basically says, when you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, you can expend a spell slot to deal radiant damage to the target, of course, in addition to the weapon's damage. The extra damage is 2d8 for a level 1 spell slot, which at this point we'd have 2 level 1 spell slots. So what this is saying is that you can wait to see your attack hit. If your attack hits, then you get to decide if you want to smite. You can just add that smite on after you hit a creature. So you hit the creature and then decide to smite. This is important because of Reckless Attack with our Barbarian, because we're throwing 6 d20s looking for that natural 20 against our opponents in a round. Every single round, not even counting action surge. We're looking for that d20. When you see that natural 20, that is when you can choose to Divine Smite. And so when you do that, it's a dice. It will double. So instead of dealing 2d8 extra smite damage, you can wait till you see that crit and you can say, I want to smite. Then you're going to throw an extra 4d8 points of damage on top of that. And you can do that basically as many times as you guys have Divine Smite, even more than once in a round. If you land your first attack with you get a natural 20 on your first attack through those 2 rolls, and you get another one on your bonus attack or whatever. And that can even help you when you're trying to finish off an opponent to move towards the next one. You can Divine Smite, and then that will maybe finish that opponent and proc your great weapon master to move over and make another D10 attack instead of a pull arm D4 attack. And so as you can see, that is going to create a nasty, nasty effect for this particular character. And then down here with Sacred Oath, what you can do is there was one oath that just jumped right off of the page to me for the overall theming here and just kind of versatility. And that is Oath of Conquest, right? We've got this brutish, fiendish guy out on the field that is just merciless. He's throwing that extra radiant damage or maybe throwing that necrotic damage. And he is a paladin with the Oath of Conquest. Show no mercy. He's just this brute out on the field. And so that made a lot of sense there. And for the oath spells, by the way here, and I'll have to check, I haven't looked at it in a while, but I'm pretty sure Armor of Agathis is a spell that doesn't require any concentration, and I think it lasts like an hour or something along those lines. So you really don't want to be using your spell slots for anything other than those Divine Smites so you can crit on them. But if you decide, hey, maybe instead of that one, explosion of damage with that extra 4d8 for a spell slot, maybe I want to cast Armor of Agathis and then, you know, every time somebody hits me, they're taking that extra 5 points of damage. You can absolutely do that, and you can still do it while you're, you know, before you rage. It lasts an hour. So I think that makes a lot of sense here as well. Channel Divinity, we're really not going to use. Every once in a while, we'll be able to do Guided Strike, which is going to give us that extra 10 to the attack roll. Again, not terribly important. And now down here for the ASI, you have a couple of choices. You can go with Constitution and start cranking up your Constitution. Yes, that will technically add to your Constitution save, and that will add to your armor by 1. You're going to be recklessly attacking, so everybody's going to have advantage against you anyways. Odds are, with a low AC and them having advantage against you, the 1 point is not going to do a lot. So you can come down here and take this feat. I like Tough here. I think it's a really good choice, because really all you want to do with your Constitution is pump up your life anyways. And so this is going to do that very, very, very well. And so this will do that a little bit better than an extra Constitution thing, an extra Constitution increase. And then down here, so with our 5th level of Paladin, we really only get extra attack. And extra attack for us, because we're multi-class, it's kind of a dead ability, right? It doesn't really do anything for us. But the reason that we want to take that 5th level of Paladin is because it is going to be a massive increase on the number of times that we can smite and our smite damage. With just 4 levels of smite, or excuse me, 4 levels of Paladin here, you only have 3 level 1 spell slots. There's only 3 times you can Divine Smite. With that extra 5th level of Paladin at level 15 overall, you're going to go from 3 smites to 6 smites, because you're going to go from 3 level 1s to 4 level 1s and 2 level 2s, which, by the way, if you save those for crits, are now going to crit off for 68 instead of 48. And so that's why we want to go ahead and snag that 5th level of Paladin, even though extra attack doesn't really do us a whole lot of good there. And real quick, let me just jump down here to spellcasting. Again, you really don't want, spells, I'm sorry. So for spells here, for the stuff that you're preparing, you really don't want to be using your spells for anything other than Divine Smites, but just because you might as well prepare the right spells. Spells that I like here are, I like Zone of Truth for the roleplay implications, and I like Lesser Restoration, just in case. And then over here for our level 1, let's go ahead and prepare Cure Wounds. That way, if you have any of those smites that you haven't used and you're not raging and it's in between combats, you can heal the party up. Maybe you're on a long delve and you don't have enough hit dice to naturally heal up while you're resting. And so you can just power out a couple of Cure Wounds there. And again, by the way, don't forget you have Lay on Hands also. So don't forget that as well. And so at this point, we have our Barbarians kind of maxed out, our Paladins maxed out, our Fighter. All we're going to do is the last 5 levels of the game, we're going to crank up what we get in Fighter. We get our last ASI. Let's go ahead and bounce that up to Constitution, increasing our con saves and increasing our health. You get Indomitable, which is kind of a cool little ability. Reroll some failed saving throws. Also, real quick here, before I forget, I do want to touch on Brutish Durability. This is a really cool ability. So what this does is whenever you're making a saving throw, you get to roll a 1d6 and add it to your saving throw, which I think is fantastic, especially because we have those really, really awful wisdom saving throws. And so this lets you just kind of add that extra d6. But here's what's really fantastic about it. Because it will also let you add that 1d6 to a death saving throw, if the total now becomes higher than 20, so say you roll whatever, an 18 on your death saving throw, and you get that d6 on there, and that puts you up to 21, that will allow you to treat that as though you rolled a natural 20, restoring you back to 1 hit points. And if you watched my recent video on a few different rules that sometimes people get kind of mixed up a little bit, you'll know that the death saving throw happens at the beginning of the turn. So if you go down, somebody attacks you, you go down, it's your turn, you make your death saving throw, you add the d6, you're above 20, you're back at 1 hit point. You can stand up with half of your movement and then go off on whoever just dropped you like nothing happened. So I think that Brutish Durability is a really, really powerful ability. Maybe even too powerful. It wouldn't surprise me if by the time they're finally done to put this inside of an actual book, this thing gets touched up a little bit here. But as is right now with the Unearthed Arcana, it is a very, very strong ability. Let's come down here, choose another fighting style. Doesn't really matter here. I don't know if I chose defense earlier. Let's just take protection. Maybe we want to whip out a shield or something. And then finally at level 20, we're going to get our third attack. So now we are making 3 attacks in a round. We're getting our bonus action either with our D4 or if we're killing somebody, that extra D10 for our 4th attack in a round. And then we can action surge for another 3 attacks in a round, all at advantage, all looking for those crits, all with the ability to lay in those extra smites and double down on them, which is going to make you very, very formidable. Now, real quick, before I've got a spreadsheet here to kind of show you guys some of the damage that this thing is capable of, I want to talk quickly on equipment. So for equipment, really, especially if you're looking for magic items, hey, what items are going to be good for this character? You're really, really bad at dex saves and wisdom saves. So anything that can increase your saves. Armor's not really going to matter, but things like Ring of Protection for that increase on saves, things like Cloak of Protection, which will stack for those saves. Those are going to be some really good things to target, and not the rarest things you've ever seen. Cloaks of Protection are fairly common. And so, you know, you can talk with your Dungeon Master, let them know those are the things you're looking for. And then as far as weapons go, you're kind of narrowed down to either a halberd or a glaive here. So you don't have a lot of versatility when it comes to magic weapons for that. So I would definitely recommend letting my Dungeon Master know, hey, this is what my character is looking for. He is very specifically looking for a magic weapon, a magic glaive, something that can throw extra damage, or preferably increase like maybe a +2 to your attack bonus because you're taking that -5 penalty. So anything that can kind of try to help offset that for all of those attacks is something that I would let my Dungeon Master know, hey, if we come across a magic sword, my character would want to be looking for somebody to trade this with, or anybody that might have an in on crafting a magic weapon, etc. You know, just let your Dungeon Master know, hey, you know, this is what my character would specifically be looking for, even if it's kind of off screen from the rest of the game. Whenever we're visiting taverns, he's asking around, etc. for these types of additional abilities. So let's jump over and take a look, because everybody loves spreadsheets, right? Let's jump over and take a look at some spreadsheets. So as you can see here, I've kind of got just everything kind of laid out for me for all of the extra, you know, what abilities you're getting at what levels. And then down here, what I have, excuse me, I'm so sorry, is I kind of have the key levels. Now, you'll notice that there's a lot of them, and there's a few that are missing. And so basically, if I put a key level over here, it's really something that means that this build is continuing to power up, right? Something else cool is happening. You're getting an extra attack. You're getting an extra to hit bonus. You're getting an extra damage on all of your attacks. You're gaining access to a new ability. And you can see one thing I really, really like about this build is it is absolutely strong from level 1, and it is absolutely fiendishly strong at level 20, and almost every level in between it gets stronger on its way to that level 20 build. So something I really, really like about this character is it just goes fast and hard right from the jump. So you can see right here, you get that extra +2 from range damage at level 2. This is our first level fighter, by the way. That's when you're going to get that ability to the Great Weapon Fighting Style, and that's going to let us re-roll that damage. For the Fighter Action Surge, it's going to give us a little bonus here. And now what you're seeing here real quick, by the way, is this is our 1d10 + 5, and the bonus attack here is that 1d4 + 5. So I know later on, whenever we get Great Weapon Mastery, I left those at 1d4s, not 1d10s, even though sometimes you're going to be attacking with that bonus attack at a 1d10. But I really kind of wanted to show off what this build is capable of doing really just consistently without really needing to rely on a bunch of, you know, awesome scenarios all kind of lining up into one thing. Excuse me here. I'm kind of losing my voice here. Then at level 4, that's when you're going to gain access to Brute. And I've kind of just stacked Brute into one column instead of putting it on each of these attacks. But realistically, this is 1d10 + 5 + 1d4 points of damage. And over here would be 1d4 + 5 + 1d4 points of damage if you action surge with an extra 1d10 + 5 + 1d4 points of damage as well. Down here, we're getting our strength is going up. At level 6, we're getting our extra attack. So now we got 1d10 + 6 + 1d4 + 1d10 + 6 + 1d4 plus 1d4 plus 6 plus 1d4 plus potentially with an action surge, another 1d10 plus 6 plus 1d4 and another 1d10 plus 6 plus 1d4 in a round at level 6. So you can see the damage here is just really starting to ramp up and ramp up. At level 9, you gain access to that Divine Fury, which is for your Zealot. For your Zealot, excuse me, ability here, and that's going to be an extra 1d6 plus 1. Again, that's only going to proc once per round, so that's why I only included it once. At level 10, you're going to get a Great Weapon Mastery. So at this point, you're attacking at a 1d10 plus 17 plus 1d4 2 times in a round, potentially a 3rd time in a round instead of this 1d4. Then one of those is going to proc an extra 1d6 plus 2, and then you can still action surge into another 1d10 plus 17 plus 1d4 and 1d10 plus 17 plus 1d4, which is just so much fun to say. So at this point, you're just exploding in damage here. And then by the time you get ready to start adding Smite, I only put the basic smites in here. I didn't even put the criticals. So this would mean if you just smited and it was just a regular attack, say you got an 18 and you hit your opponent, you could proc that for an extra 2d8. Or you could, if you get 2 attacks off, you could do it at a 48. If you crit on both of those, you could max that out at an extra 8d8 in one round. So if you just go off on, let's say, a big bad evil guy, you come up here again, you're attacking at advantage. It's very plausible that there's going to be times when you get 2 natural 20s on your 3 attacks or maybe 5 attacks, and you can smite and crit those out on each of those. Level 15, you're going to get access to level 2 spell slots, which is going to be a lot of fun here. And that is going to make that to a potential 24d8 if you're critting those out. And then down here at level 19, your brute damage goes up from a 1d4 all the way to a 1d6. So now you're getting all of those with an extra d6 on every single attack that you land. And then finally at level 20, you are getting the your 3rd attack in a round. All right, guys, and so just for fun, I thought, what would happen if somebody hasted you and gave you an extra attack, and somebody enlarged you over here and gave you an extra 8d4 on all of your weapon attacks? You can have a bard cast elemental weapon at a really high level and get you an extra 20d4. And then just for kicks, what would happen if your opponent was paralyzed and you auto-critted and did all that stuff there? What would the max damage be? And not even taking into consideration undead from taking extra damage from smite, or maybe a treant taking in extra damage from that elemental weapon type, you are up to 874 damage, potentially. Obviously, that's not going to happen. That's never going to happen. But that is there's just a little bit of fun and cheekiness there for the last little bit of this build. So guys, there you go. There is my Holy Brute, kind of playing on that theme and building it up of this brutish fighter raging into battle with a divine force behind them, who eventually goes on to actually become a paladin of that force, or whether that's a good force or again a negative force, maybe a paladin of Bane or something along those lines, throwing out necrotic damage. And I thought it was a really cool theme for the overall build, and I thought it just was really, really fun to build actually on paper to see what it's actually capable of. And so there you guys go. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you would change. Let me know what I missed here, because I always miss something with these ultimate builds. If you guys, by the way, you want to check out my ultimate archer build, you can do that. I'll put a link right up there to that little card that you guys see there in the corner. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this particular build. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I'd love to have you subscribe. Every week I put out new videos on GM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more videos just like this. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just hit that subscribe button down below and come join us. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah.